3rd. Check and see if we have a quorum. Three, we need one more.
Mayor, I see Mr. St. Columbia, Mr. Etherly, Ms. Ford, and you. That was four.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right. Welcome to the West Helena City Council meeting, Tuesday, August the 3rd, 2021. And of course, as always, I want to welcome our guests, KJRW, the Helena-West Helena Daily World, any other guests we might have, or media. Ms. Ramsey, call the roll.
Davis, St. Columbia,
Present.
Crockett, Franklin, Etherly. Oh, I guess Mr. Etherly wasn't on. Sorry about that.
Do we have any other members on?
No.
Miss Davis is getting on now.
Okay. Ford,
Ms. Davis, are you on?
She's connecting to the audio right now.
Give her just a second.
Ms. Ford. Here. Okay.
I need to hear.
Ms. Davis.
I don't see her on the screen. I don't see her.
Here.
Okay. All right, Ms. Davis is here.
That gives us full.
Yes, sir. It gives us a quorum.
Okay, thank you again. Welcome to the meeting tonight. We're gonna, so I see it's the quorum is present and we've called the roll. And Ms. Ramsey, would you like to, or we need approval for the minutes of July the 14th, which was in your packet. A minute to look at that.
July the 16th.
14th.
I wasn't present at that one.
Anybody who was present want to make the motion on that? Ms.
I
Davis.
move that we accept the minutes from the meeting of July 14th,
Yes, ma'am.
2021.
Second.
And Mr. St. Columbia's name is shown as present.
That was a special call meeting at noon, right? Yeah.
Ms. Ford moves that we adopt the minutes of July the 14th, 2021. Ms. Davis seconds the motion. Any questions or comments about the motion?
Ms. Davis, I think that was our regular meeting.
The 14th.
Okay.
It was a noon meeting.
Oh, no, so, okay, sorry, then he wasn't there then. I'm ahead of myself. That was the 20th. I was there on the 14th. My motion is still to accept
ma'am.
these
I think
minutes.
we need 4 votes, right?
Yes.
So I think we have those present who were present at that meeting. So are there any other questions or comments? If not, call the roll.
Etherly. Forward,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes,
Crockett, Franklin, Smith.
Yes.
Okay, because Mr. St. Columbia was absent.
Right.
And thank you. And so the motion passed. The next set of minutes would be for July the 20th. Excuse me.
Mr. Mayor, Joe St. Columbia, I make a motion that we approve the minutes of July the 20th as printed.
St. Columbia moves adoption of the minutes for July the 20th, 2021. Is there a second? Is there a second? Anybody want to second the minutes from July?
Second.
Mr. Ford seconds the motion. Any other questions or discussion? If not, call the roll.
was that our last, excuse me,
It's
was that
fine.
our last?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. I got ahead of myself on the other thing. So yes.
That was our last meeting.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, well, I'd just like to make a correction if I can
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
on the Parks and Recreation Coordinator position. I did make a motion to hire someone. I
Okay.
know it's no motion. Wait a minute.
Okay. All right, I'll make that correction.
It failed for a second, but there was a motion that was made.
Okay, yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Any other corrections to be made or discussion about the motion? So the motion would be to approve minutes of July the 20th as amended. Any other discussion or comments? If not, call the roll.
St. Columbia,
Yes.
Crockett, Forward,
Yes.
Etherly, Davis,
Yes,
Franklin, Smith.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. And financials. Ms. Turner, would you want to be recognized for the financials or?
Yeah, as usual, the treasurer's report won't be available until the second meeting of the month. But if you have any questions about the first one, I'm open to any questions. And also, I would like to add, I would like the council to consider increasing appropriations for the police and fire department. Through yesterday, the fire department has gone over budget by $3,000 as far as overtime is concerned. And the police department has gone over budget by $27,816. So we're gonna need to increase appropriations for those two departments. As far as overtime is concerned, I would like to add, though, only $60,000 was approved for the police department, for the fire department. In overtime, I suggested closer to 100. I think you guys just wanted to appropriate 60,000 and see where they were, how they fared throughout the year. And so currently right now they are over by 3,000, but they're significantly below where they were last year. And so, but they will need additional appropriations for the remainder of the year.
Mr. Turner, will you repeat those figures, please?
Is through this current payroll so far, the fire department is over budget by $3,910. And the police department is over budget by $27,816. Part of that in the police budget, 11,100 is for non-uniformed officers, the staff, administrative staff, dispatchers and such, and $16,715 is for the uniformed officers. That, and you appropriated $100,000 for the police department.
Any of that for the overtime for the police department, Mr. Turner?
Excuse me?
Is any of that overtime, any of that for overtime for the police?
Yes, that the numbers that I just called out were for the police department. They are over budget by $27,816.
That's all overtime, is that correct?
Yes, that's just overtime.
And for what time span, Mr. Turner?
This is through this current payroll, this current pay period, which was August, with the checks that are going out Friday.
I mean, from what time to what
From
period?
January through,
Oh, for the year.
yes, ma'am. I'm
Year
sorry.
to date.
Yeah, year to date. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I just want you to think about it. I can kind of come up with some numbers that we may need to, I'll try to figure out what I think they may need for the remainder of the year. Or if you just want to just approve it up to a certain point like we did last year, we kind of almost approved it every well, basically every pay period. So if you want to continue along that pace, we can do that. Or if you want to figure out about how much they may need for the remainder of the year, that's okay with me too. So just whatever you guys, however you want to approach this is fine. But I'm just telling you now so you can kind of think of ways of how you want to address this.
And Mr. Turner,
Yes, sir.
Christopher Franklin, Mr. Turner, you said that's $27,816. You said for uniform officers, there's $16,716 for uniform,
Yeah.
right? For non-uniform.
Yeah, 15. I'm just kind of trying to do some rounding, but it's about $16,715 for uniform officers.
Yes, sir. So, Mr. Turner, with the overtime, how many police officers are we currently at with the number of officers? Are we currently budgeted with the right amount of officers that we're supposed to have in this overtime that could be taken from a salary that we have gotten? What I'm saying by that is are we fully staffed with police officers?
You, according to the budget, you approved 16 officers, 16 patrolmen in the budget, and we have 15. I think they just put an ad in the paper for another one.
Okay, well, for that right there, if we are already, you said 27,000. Well, if we are over, and that salary probably gonna pay that 27,000 now, we may not need to hire to cover the overtime. I mean, if you're spending money, you're spending money. You said this year to date, we budgeted them $100,000, right?
Yes.
So we've already maxed out at $100,000. So this is an additional $27,000, right?
Yes.
See, that's what. And we have not been fully staffed, right?
No.
But the council has given the approval to hire the officers to get fully staffed, right?
You approved a budget for 16 officers, 16
Right.
patrol officers.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. We didn't cut anybody. So
Yeah,
if
you cut one out of the budget. You did cut one out of the budget.
One.
There are 17, the ordinance, the base pay ordinance
okay.
allows for 17 patrolmen and you cut one out of the budget. So you budgeted for 16. So when you say
Okay.
fully staffed, I'm going by according to the budget.
Okay, well, but we just at the 8th month and we already spent $100,000. Now we're going to be at 127 if the body approves this, right? And we're not fully staffed, right? So with the $100,000 we spent, we could have hired at least 5 more officers, six plus the one with the $27,000. Ain't that about right?
I'm not following you. I'm trying to.
Okay, with the $100,000 overtime that the city council approved, right?
Yes.
That's 4 officers at $25,000 a piece, right?
Yeah.
So you add another one with the $27,000 we're gonna approve, right? And we could have been over what we needed, right? If we're gonna spend this $100,000, we should. That's do you see where I'm going?
No, I mean, actually, I don't. I
Okay.
know that.
If we spend $100,000, right? $100,000, right? That could have been some more officers, right?
Yeah.
Budgeted $100,000 for overtime, right? Right?
Yeah, it could have been used for.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. With high as the crime is, then we spend another $27,000, which that would make the 5th officer we could hire. With high the high rate of crime in this town, we could have used that money. Well, the administration could have used that money to hire more people.
If I may interject, gentlemen, Andre Valley, City Attorney, Mr. Turner, I think it would be better for everybody listening if you would explain what is the total cost for one patrolman first class, from payroll to insurance to lawfare to everything, so y'all can have a clearer conversation about the budget.
Okay, well, per officer, it would be $43,000.
One officer?
Yeah. It would be
so can you say it again? So
it would be $43,000 for a patrolman, first class.
That's with benefit, like Mr. Bassett, with benefits and everything, right?
Yes.
All right, then that's trying to advertise for at $43,000. That would give people a reason to want to cover with benefits and everything, because $43,000, that's, we pay a department head, deputy director $50,000. They ain't but $3,000 shy for what they did with benefits.
No, Mr. Franklin, if I may interject, what Mr. Turner said, that's the total cost to the city. That's not what they're receiving, because he's including the health insurance, lawfare, and all that. I asked him what the total cost to the city was per officer, not their salaries, but their salary, and everything. That's the total cost of the city, 43,000. But the question I was asking.
Yes, sir. And I understood what he said. I said, but if you look at it with benefits and all, city. So we got a long agenda, but those were the things. We got we spent almost $127,000 in overtime in less than 8 months. And I mean, is the police chief here? Can he answer some questions?
I can answer them for you. And as the treasurer pointed out,
okay.
Now, Mr. Franklin, you don't run the meeting. So if you could suspend your conversation for just a minute. First of all, as the treasurer pointed out, we're down with overtime this year compared to last year. As most of the council knows, we've had issues with overtime historically with the city for many years. We are finally getting control of the overtime in the city in the last couple of years. This is a reflection of it. The only difference tonight is that in the past, y'all have approved correction budgets after the fact, And now you want us to approve the budget during the year when we go over overtime. And so what Mr. Turner is simply asking is that you appropriate the additional money for overtime. We're actually spending less on overtime in both departments. And I congratulate both of them for that. And one of the reasons we're spending less in the fire department is because we did do promotions and raises. And so I would ask the council to approve further appropriations for the overtime that we've spent. And overtime is particularly difficult to control when you don't have enough police officers on the streets, which, as you know, is on the agenda later, and I'd rather discuss that later if we ever get to it, which we've been trying to get to for some time. So if you would, at this point, take any other questions from other members of the council regarding Mr. Turner's statement about overtime and appropriations.
Well, Mayor, I just like.
Now,
to
Mr.
respond to-
Franklin, I didn't ask for you. I said to other members of the council. You've spoken enough. We have other issues on the agenda. You're not allowed to dominate the council meeting.
I just asked a
Are there,
question.
no, Mr. Franklin, you're not recognized. And I'm going to mute you here in a minute if you don't
See, that's
understand
what-
that other members of this council are elected to. They have a right to ask questions. Now, are there other members of the council who have questions about Mr. Turner's report? Okay. Is there an action to be taken on Mr. Turner's report?
Well, I mean, Mayor, I'm not asking for any motions. Like I said, I want them to consider it. We can do it next meeting. I can adjust the budget. But I would also like, I mean, if they can, if they want to, that's fine. But I would also like to mention that in 2020, at the year end 2020, overtime was 174,000. Well, let me see what it actually was. In 2020, it was $174,387. And in 2019, it was 189,000. So they're still going at about the same rate that they have in the last few years. I mean, it's lower. I mean, it should come in a little bit lower, but you know, it's kind of still in the same area because they've always been on about this level of staffing. So for the last few years, they haven't been fully staffed. So that just caused overtime to go up.
And for people who don't understand, the overtime is time and a half. So we're basically paying someone we're paying them time and a half for the same hour we would have paid somebody regular time if we had been adequately staffed. So one of the issues we had with the fire department, for example, was we weren't fully staffed. And so we had to pull an extra duty. It's the same question or same issue we have with the police department. So as we fully staff, we might see overall expenditures increase in some ways, but in other ways, we're going to see it go down. And that's what we've seen in the fire department. And I suspect we will see that in the police department if we ever get to the complement of police that we can agree on is what we need. So, but we can have that discussion later. Mr. Turner, anything else you want to report on financial issues?
No, that's about it. I was just bringing their attention to that. And like I said, I would also like to reiterate that the fire department in particular, that their overtime is significantly lower than it has been in the last couple of years.
And may I ask a question? Since you do relate those two together, it's because the police department does not have enough officers, and that's why we're having this overtime problem. Is that correct, Mr. Turner?
Yeah, I would attribute a lot of it to being understaffed and a lot of officers because you don't have enough officers.
How many
we do have?
How many officers are we understaffed right now?
Well, the council approved 16 patrol officers in the budget, and we have 15 right now.
So we're only one understaffed.
Yeah, according to the budget.
Okay,
we're gonna have more, if we can get to it, we're gonna have a longer discussion, I hope, about that here
okay,
down ballot on
okay.
the agenda.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I was just really trying to just, bring you guys' attention to the fact that we will need some more appropriations in the police and the fire department. And I really wasn't expecting you to make any decision tonight, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention and start, thinking about it.
Yeah, and I would point out too that 2020 was a particularly tough year because we had to implement all the state mandates on COVID, which was a daunting task. But I attribute that to the reason our violent crime rate here went down when it went up dramatically all across this region and all across the state, and all across the country. It actually went down here. And I really believe that's because we did such an excellent job of enforcing most of those mandates, which had a secondary impact on our crime. So far this year, and I've got to knock on wood, it's also been dramatically down. But we also had to deploy more police officers, or we had to have more police hours. And we also lost an officer in the line of duty last year, which created an additional need for overtime during that unfortunate and tragic episode. So 2020 was an anomaly in many ways. I'll just add that as we might comparisons. Anything else, Mr. Turner?
I had a question as far as the fire department is concerned. I know
Yes, ma'am.
not long ago, the fire department was close to being fully staffed. How are they now?
Maybe for my understanding, I think that they are fully staffed. I think they've sent a couple of entry-level firemen to the academy. And so if they aren't fully staffed, their staffing is 30 people, 30 firemen. And if they don't have 30, they have 29 or 28 or something like that.
And I think they're about to be as soon as
Yeah, I think they.
I think they're going to be at 30. No, I was just going to agree with you. They should be at 30 when the latest recruits come back from the academy.
Yeah, Mrs. Davis, they have fluctuated, and of course, they can have 30 firemen, and then they can send a couple. They can send 5 to the academy and 3 pass, 2 don't. And so they've been consistently around 28 for a good part of the year, 28 to 30. So they're doing a good job of keeping close to being fully staffed. I think this, next go around when they finally get the only time they fall below being fully staffed are for the ones that don't pass the academy. So once they can get 30 people certified, I think they'll be fully staffed for a while.
Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Other questions, Mr. Turner? Okay, thank you, Mr. Turner. We're going to move on to our action items now. I think Ms. Crockett is on the meeting now, and she is recognized on issue, and I believe Reverend Von Daniels is also present, but I'm going to regarding an issue in Violet Circle. So I'm going to recognize Ms. Crockett.
Yes, I'm just calling because I was told that y'all was gonna pave the street that leads to the house. And all of a sudden now you're saying that you told me a month ago that it was gonna be done. Now you're saying that it has to be brought before the council, and we're trying to see what does it have to, what do we need to do?
We received two estimates late this afternoon, not in time for your packets. They were both over $20,000.
$20,000.
Yes, ma'am. And of course, the bidding authority is $7,500. Of course, my spending authority is $5,000. And then that's a pretty substantial amount. I will tell you that Mr. Jones and Mr. Womack, now Reverend Von Daniels, if you want to chime in here, feel free to. But it's my understanding that they did go out in the past several weeks, months to help with ruts and that sort of thing that had formed in the driveway or street. Essentially, it's a street, but it was intended to be, and well, let me say for the record, that it is Violet Circle is a city street. There's one home on it. I'm not exactly sure how long it is, but I mean, I drove down it and turned around. It is off Valley Drive. Reverend Von Daniels lives at the end of it. It was originally part of a plan on Valley Drive to be something more than it turned out to be, and they never removed it from the city street system. So the reason for the confusion is that it looks like a driveway, but it was intended to be a development that never really developed other than the one house. And so is it a city street? Yes, it is. Is it as bad as some of our other city streets? I'm sorry, Reverend Von Daniels, but it's just not. Does that mean it's any less important? Well, not necessarily, but we have limited resources, and the council is going to have to make a decision about whether or not, considering the condition of all our roads and streets, if that's a worthy investment. So it's really a city council decision, but we did late today get 2 estimates, and I don't have them in front of me, but they were both over $20,000.
Can you tell me who the estimates are from?
I'm sorry.
Can you tell me who the estimates are from?
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't have them in front of me. I'm sorry, I don't. And I don't know if there's anybody on the mute who would know, but if you do, go ahead and speak up.
Ms. Crockett,
Tonight, right?
Ms. Crockett, the estimates were from Ridgeline Construction.
Who?
Ridgeline Construction, Mr. Tony Davis.
And who else? He said he had 2.
That's the only 2 that were turned in this afternoon.
Ridge Light and who?
They were both from Ridgeline Construction.
So how you get 2 estimates from the same company?
Well, it's the scope of the work. The driveway or street is 6,040 square feet. One of the estimates would be to asphalt over, clean up and asphalt over the existing area. The other one is for digging up all of the current asphalt and pouring new concrete. And the estimates run from 22.5 to 29.5.
Well, we might need to get an estimate for someone else, because when this was first discussed and actually put on there, I was told, and Reverend Von Daniels is on here, and he can tell you that it's going to be taken care of. So we took it off the agenda. This has been kicked down, as Joe St. Columbia was said, been kicked down the highway forever. So I don't care if it ain't but a half a house on there. He's you made a promise, Mayor. You made a promise to Reverend Daniels that you would take care of that, but now all of a sudden it's something else.
Well, Ms. Crockett, there are a couple of issues here. $20,000 is way over my spending limit, and it requires bids. Number one, I didn't believe it would cost that much. Okay. Number two, I did honor my promise. We went out and took care of those ruts. I drove it 2 days ago. It's either a long driveway or a short street. It depends on how you see it. But it certainly wasn't impassable. It was a long way from, as serious as some of the other streets in town. But it doesn't really matter because it's beyond my spending limit. And it requires bids or a waiving of bids. So once it went over $5,000, it's out of my hands.
Okay, but this is what I'm saying. You say you drove it the other day. I've driven it also, especially when it's wet, and you can tear your tires and stuff up in it. right at the street between Valley Drive and Valley Circle. There's a big rut right at the hole. So I don't know what you drove, because I've driven over there, and I'm driving an SUV, and it's still, you still can tear your vehicle up coming up in there. And it's not up the driveway, as y'all trying to say it's his driveway. It's on the city street of Valley Drive and Valley Circle.
And it's,
Yes,
it will,
ma'am. And I saw
if I may-
that and as well. No, you might not. As I saw that as well, and it does
Wait a
meet
minute, man,
the-
you can't tell that man. He
No,
can't
I was
talk.
already
You
speaking.
get out of
and
hand.
I can
You
do that.
get
I'm
out of hand.
sorry.
Don't nobody want to hear you.
Miss Crockett, I can do that. I was speaking first and
No,
I was
you
responding
can't.
to your comment. Yes, ma'am, I can.
How
So
come you can't?
just
How come
incorrect.
you
No,
can, how come you can
Miss
talk when
Crockett,
you want to,
Miss
but
Crockett,
everybody else
I
not to
can.
talk when you
Miss
say talk?
Crockett,
Mr. Mayor.
now you're speaking over me, and I'm trying to
You
respond
talk
to
about, you
your
speaking over
question
me. I
and
was
your
talking.
Miss
I was
Crockett.
talking and you interrupted.
You were directing your comments to me, and I'm trying to respond to them. And
Okay, let's
and
hear
if
it.
you would
Let's
let
hear
me,
it.
I will tell you that I agree with you that where the street/driveway meets Valley Drive, it does need work more than the rest of that road does. I agree with that. And if we can get that under $5,000, and Mr. Von Daniels agrees that we can remove that street from the city system, which should have been removed years ago, then I'll get with our street department and we'll get that taken care of. I agree with you. That's the section that does need improvement. The rest of it, the ruts and the rest of it appeared to me to be okay, except that it is in the city road system. And between that and the bids, it's over my head. It's up to you. It's the city council's decision. Now, I don't know who wants to talk next, but Mr. Franklin, you can talk now if you want. You're recognized.
I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna get off this. The level of respect that I've tried to show to you, and I got off the call because I think that as a member of the city council, I can speak. But on behalf of that Violet Circle, if they was having a fishing tournament or something like that over there, or he was trying to impress somebody, it would be done. See, the games, or let me finish, the games that we play with people in politics, you have went over your spending limit on that fence that you got over there. Everything that you do your way. And I try my best to respect you. You don't tell me to be quiet. You don't tell me I'm not recognized. As a member of this, as a member of the city council, I've tried my best to be respectful towards you, but I will not let, as a grown man, you will not tell me to be quiet. You were asking Mr. Franklin, hold off. I was respectful to you. I was asking the city treasurer some questions, and I was not through. But with that, with Mr. Daniels and Mrs. Daniels, that street, if I don't think the street should be removed. It's like you want to make him take some kind of a deal to remove his street for remove it, and he take ownership of the street once you get somebody to bid it for $5,000 to do it. That's his street. If it costs $20,000, get you some folks in here to do what they need to do. I'll make a motion of that. You get somebody to bid it out. But again, Mayor, the level of disrespect, I try not to disrespect you. I've tried to treat you as nice as I can. But I do not, as a man, do not yell at me ever again, because I won't yell at you. Do not tell me I cannot speak. This is a city council meeting. I'm a council person and I can speak. I was not out of order. I was not finished asking a question. But as it relates to Violet Drive, whatever we need to do, I'm in favor of doing it. Because when you want to do what you want to do at the boardwalk, you got all that stuff cleaned up. You have bid that fence out. You tore fence down. We cost of it yet, but the person that you had to do that fence, check their background. Check and see they have an occupation. I would go further, but I don't want to be disrespectful to nobody, because everybody has like people try to pay me. Everybody has a criminal record. I'm sure the people that you hire, some of them that you hire, have criminal records. So by that being said, whatever we need to do for Violet Circle, I'm in favor of it. And if you get some bids or we need to put it out for bid, I'll make a motion to put it out for bid to whoever, whatever we need to do. And I'm not gonna disrespect you. And I
And
really
I'll
appreciate
second
you.
it. And I'll second it.
I have a private question.
Okay, wait a minute. There's a point of order here. And is there a motion on the table?
I would like to hear what
Is
Mr.
there-
Valley has to say first. I would like to hear what Mr. Valley has to say.
I thought
Because-
Mr. Franklin said motion and Ms. Crockett said second. But I was pointing
I don't
clarity.
know what the motion is.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Point of clarity. What exactly is the motion? Are you motioning to waive competitive bidding or bid, or what?
Yes,
what
sir.
particular is your motion?
Motion to waive
rebid.
competitive bidding.
Now you're saying waive, and Ms. Crockett is saying to rebid it.
Well, Ms. Crockett, what do you want to do, Ms. Crockett?
It needs to
let's
be
get on the same-
rebid because that's
Okay.
only one person. Yeah, I understand you got two different estimates, but that's only one person. I think we need to put it up a bid.
Yes, ma'am. That's fine. My motion is to rebid the job out on Violet Circle.
And I said,
Another point of clarification, Mr. Valley, we don't need a motion to put it out for bid. It's already out for bid. That's why we got the two bids. We didn't get other bids. We can keep it open for bids and see if we get any more bids between now and the next council meeting. But we don't need a motion to do that.
I'm sorry, but the motion was to rebid it, not to leave bids open. Because I haven't seen it out there for bid.
Okay, well, there's a motion on the table to rebid the street paving project at Violet Circle. There's a second by Ms. Crockett. Any other questions or comments about the motion to rebid the Violet Circle project? If not, call the roll.
Ms. Ford,
Yes.
Mr. Etherly,
Yes.
Mr. Franklin, Ms. Crockett,
Yes.
Mr. St. Columbia,
Yes,
Ms. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Franklin,
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. Yes.
6 yes.
Motion
Man,
passes.
I need a point of order just for a second to address one issue. Y'all keep going back and forth about who's recognized. The mayor is the chairman of all meetings, and he recognizes people as they come forward to keep order. The balance with that is I don't think that the mayor can mute any city council member. I would encourage all city council members to respect order and to go forward diligently, because it is a city council meeting. You're elected to represent whoever from your ward, and you should be able to speak freely, but everything has to be done in order. So I ask that each side maintain order. I don't believe the mayor can mute any city council members, but I think every city council member also needs to make sure that they are going in order, as well as me and the other non-city council members. We need to wait to acknowledge. But let us bring down the tone some, and let us continue to go forward. And this is a city council meeting. Mr. Franklin has every right to be here. Ms. Crockett has every right to be here, as well as everyone on the line. So, but I would ask, excuse me, that you honor when you recognize, but also would ask that Mayor, that you also respect them as well. That don't mute them and do all that, and everybody keep going forward, and let's get the city's business done. With that, I yield back to the mayor.
Mr. Valley, I appreciate that, but I think any reasonable person would say that I've been more than, easygoing as far as allowing people to speak on these meetings. But I will say that we adopted Robert's Rules of Order, and those are the rules we go by. Muting people on these things would not be included in it because they didn't know about these things when they wrote Robert's Rules of Order. And there's also no rule that you can't do it, but there is a rule about maintaining order, and it's the mayor's job to maintain order. And no city councilman is allowed to filibuster a meeting with conversations and questions and all the rest of that, because every member of the city council has a right to speak, ask questions. And it's my job as mayor to maintain that order so that the people who are fairly duly elected as well as the administrative body here who were elected have a right to speak and have the time to do it as well. It's also my job to make sure that we expeditiously deal with the city's business. And we can't do that if somebody wants to filibuster the agenda and make political speeches. So while I agree with you, there is a limit. And there are rules of order, not rules of disorder. And so,
Well,
that's why we have sergeant of arms in regular called meetings. That's why we have rules, is because it's the only way we can conduct the city's business or anybody's business. And so I would respectfully say I have been more than lenient when it comes to allowing city council members to speak. So including Mr. Franklin.
One of the things, Mayor, that you've done, what I respectfully say, is that part of it too is your tone. When you start yelling at people like the little children, that takes it to a whole nother level. Now, I asked everybody to respect each other and go forward. And many times when you're trying to get order, you're yelling at people, yelling. You've done it to me many times, and I just hadn't lashed back at you. But you've yelled at many people. You yelled at Ms. Crockett earlier. You yelled at Mr. Franklin earlier. And all I'm saying is everybody bring it down a notch and let's go forward. I'm done talking about it. So go forward to the next issue.
Well, I don't exactly have a gavel at one of these meetings, but the reason I raise my voice is because I'm being spoken over by somebody who's just simply trying to speak louder than I am. But they don't run the meeting. So they don't have the privilege of bringing disorder to the meeting, regardless of what they think, because other elected officials have the same right that they do. And that's my only point. And then having said that, we'll move on to the next issue on the agenda. Mr. Jesse Dunlap, who I saw earlier was on here, regarding Neiman Drive ditch behind his home. Ms. Ford is present and listed as someone who will present. Ms. Ford, you're recognized.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Ford, you
If you'll give me a few minutes of your time. Mr. Jesse Dunlap resides on Newman Drive, right past Parmalee Park. I spoke with Mr. Dunlap around the end of May 2021 and had an on-site visit with him May 30th. I had some pictures and my intent was to send them to you, and I couldn't get them any farther than Sandy, but I hope that she got them out to you today. They kind of show what is going on behind his house. I spoke with someone from the city who was kind of familiar with the property, and they had visited it. I think the problem is ongoing. That was with a previous owner whose name was Mr. Sellers, and he had the same issues. Also, there are some trees. These trees fall down in his ditch, and they stop up the flow of water, and this water floods his property, and he has a nice house there on the property. I talked with someone, like I said, from the city, and they said something about a concern on who owns the ditch, if we own the ditch, if who owns the property beyond the ditch, this hill where these trees are, and I haven't been able to locate that. Mr. Sellers does tell me that his property goes right up to the ditch. Also some concern from other people about the ground. If you disturb the ground, it might cause some shifting and some other problems. I don't know if we have to look at stabilizing that area or not. I just want to ask you, how can we help Mr. Sellers through removing some of these trees and debris to let this water flow? I don't know where the water flows into. I don't, maybe someone else who's familiar with this can answer that. But he too has been patient, and he may be on the line. I don't know if he wants to add anything else, but I ask you to communicate back with me on how we can help Mr. Sellers. I'm sorry, not Mr. Sellers, but Mr. Dunlap. Mr. Sellers was the previous owner.
Yes,
regarding
I am.
On Newman Drive.
Ms. Ford, do you want Mr. Sellers, I'm sorry,
Yes, please, Mr.
Mr.
Sellers.
Dunlap to
Would you like to
speak?
chime in on something that I may have missed?
Okay. Go ahead.
Well, the ditch is stopped up and it backs the water all the way up to the Parmley Park. And it's what it's doing, it's with it's stopped up and it's causing the flow to eat the side of the hill out. And if you'd open the ditch back up, back to its normal flow, I believe it would solve most of the problems. And the ditch is, it's the city's, I've checked on that and it's a city drainage ditch. Now who owns the property back behind that? There are several people, but the ditch is the one that's causing the problem. And I have spoken with the mayor about it and he's aware of what's going on, I think.
I think we had one bid, Mr. Dunlap, on trying to fix that problem. It was by Mr. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it was by Mr. Moneymaker. I think it was over $10,000.
Yes,
Is that?
yes.
So again, it would be over my spending limit. Again, it would be require bidding. Did we get any other bids on that? If you remember?
I don't know of any. Not to my knowledge.
I don't know, Ms. Ford.
When did we put this out for bid? When was this
Well,
bid?
Ms. Dunlap, do you remember when we got that? Actually, we had the city go by and look at it to see what the city could do. And then I know we asked Mr. Moneymaker what it would cost for him to do it. I don't know if we asked anybody else. I mean, one of our problems is we don't have enough vendors, but who bid on things. But Mr. Dunlap, can you shed any light on that as far as timing or anything?
Well, it was back in March or April is when Jacob Moneymaker came by and looked at it. Bobby Jones from the city came out and it was, it was more than the city could do. They didn't have the equipment to dig it out and move it. But that's water flows all the way from Hickory Hill and from all of those hills, it all comes right through there and pours down on me and the folks that live in front of Parmley Park.
If I may be recognized.
Yes, sir, you recognize Mr. Franklin.
Mr. Dunlap, I make a motion to rebid this out in local paper and the Arkansas Gazette, any paper there is, so we can get this done. If I make a motion to put it out for bid in the Arkansas Gazette and the local newspaper.
I'll second the motion.
Mr. Franklin moves that we bid out the project on Valley Drive, Newman Drive, regarding Mr. Dunlap's area, the ditch, and Mr. St. Columbia seconds the motion. Any questions or comments about the motion?
I have this, Mayor. The reason why you can't get anybody to bid on stuff, and this is just for clarity, you're not putting it out in the paper. Neither one of these bids have been put out. I do see Mr. Moneymaker doing things around the city, but when it goes over his spending limit, then you have to do something different. But let's put it out so we can give our local people, we got people who have the equipment to do all these kind of jobs. We shouldn't run to the same person. Let's give people in Helena a chance to make some money so we can keep our people local and they can make some money locally. A lot of jobs we have people get, they come from out of town to do these jobs, and that's not fair to the people who pay taxes in Helena-West.
We have just joined Arkansas One Bid, which will broaden the impact of these bids. But I think both of these projects bids were requested sort of the way it's been done forever. And we didn't get enough bids. So, which seems to be a common problem here. So I'm hoping that Arkansas One Bid will expose us to more vendors, which is something we really haven't had here for a very long time, if ever. But anyway, there's a motion on the floor and a second. Any
I
other
have a
questions or
question.
comments?
Yes, I have a
Sorry,
question.
yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
I just want to say, why is it that when it's something that you don't want to do, and I know this is probably out of line, but I'm just asking, like those people that you paid the Syria contracts, but you paid them $2,000 and $3,000 here, $4,000 here. Why you ain't just, why when it's something that's we as the city council is asking for the citizens, you always come up with something different. You've been doing Syria contracts with the people that you had to do the River Park and everything. You didn't bring that before us because you broke it up in like 3 or 4 payments. But if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Valley, it's the same thing. Is that not a Syria contract?
Yes, Miss Crockett. If it's the same, if it's the same thing as festive, if the project is we're doing road repair and we're going to do this, or if we're doing a cleanup of the park, or so you're cleaning up the park as a whole, it should be all bidded if you're cleaning the park. Now, I'm not talking about the River Park. I'm saying the North Helena Park, for instance, or the West Helena Park. All those things is something that's the same thing over and over and over again. The ordinance clearly defines that it's a serial contract. Now, I don't know the project that you were talking about relating to the mayor purportedly doing serial contracts. I don't know the specifics on it. But I would caution the mayor, the city clerks, and the treasurer, if you know the serial contract, those things somebody could sue us about, and because the city council hadn't approved it. Our spending ordinance says particularly that the city treasurer is supposed to approve every expenditure beforehand, every contract as it relates to the purchase orders, and I'm supposed to review the contracts, and the mayor has the final say as far as the vendors or whoever he selects. The mayor is supposed to approve. The mayor has to approve every dime that's spent in the city. So the buck stops with the mayor on every dime that's spent in the city, because he's the person in charge of ultimately how the money is spent. And so there's a process, and the process should be followed. But I would have to see the particular series of contracts that you're talking about to tell you what's a serious contract. But the general notion is you can't take a job divided into parts that's less than $5,000 in order to accomplish that. And the ordinance specifically says that.
Okay. And there are 2 allegations made with that comment, and then we'll go on and see if there are any other questions or comments. One is that I'm doing things the city council doesn't want to do. I'm not aware that the city council doesn't want to clean up the River Park, or put a new fence at our shop, or any of the other things I guess you're talking about. Secondly, I'm not aware that these are serial contracts. We have 3 at least different vendors working in the Helena River Park and around. We have way more than that working around town. And one of the reasons for that is because the city council specifically said that and appropriated money to help us do more with more vendors, because we couldn't do it all with city employees. And so that's exactly what we're doing at your direction. We're trying to hire more people to cut more grass, to get more of this work done, which is my understanding what the city council wanted, not something the city council didn't want. So that's one thing. The other thing is, at least at this point, we've had a donation, private donation made towards one of these projects. I don't have any evidence in front of me that shows any kind of serial contract. So have not been cited for that in any audits, although I've been accused of that by the city council many times. All I do know is that the community appreciates seeing the city cleaned up when we do, however we do it. And we're trying to get it done, and we got a long way to go. And it would be a lot more helpful if the city council was supportive of it rather than constantly making allegations that are unfounded. That's my
Excuse me,
response.
but,
No, ma'am, I'm sorry. Other questions or comments about the motion in the second?
yes, I have another question.
Yes, ma'am.
My question, well, I have a statement to make. I'm not saying any day, me saying anything about the cleanup. I'm proud of the cleanup that's being done. But I feel that the river park should have been one of the last things. We have things that are seen daily. That could have been used, but since the fishing tournament is coming, you felt that that was where you need to put the priority. Man, don't try to sneak nothing in behind nobody, because we all find out exactly what you're doing. It's a whole lot of more spots that could have been cleaned up that's in our view every day before the river park and stuff.
Well, the fishing tournaments are coming, and I'm glad they are. We also have a couple of music festivals coming, and we haven't had any dry weather like this in a long time. So we're catching up all over town. We have a lot to catch up on. Everybody
Did they get
who
a
is in the
permit for the
grass
fishing
cutting,
tournament?
this is everybody who has anything to do with the grass business has a lot of catching up to do because we've had an unusual amount of rain.
Has the fishing tournament been approved? Who approved the fishing tournament?
I believe it's before the, I'd have to refer that to the AMP Commission. I know they met about it earlier.
But don't we have to?
But that's
approve
not,
the-
but ma'am, but Ms. Crockett, that's not relevant to this question on the table. The
Okay, well,
question
then
on
I
the
ask you
table
when we get to vote on
is to
this.
bid, okay, that's
Yeah.
their question later, but right now, the answer to the question on the table is to rebid or bid the Neiman Drive project in the vicinity of Mr. Dunlap's home. There was a motion in a second. Any other questions about the motion or the second on the table? If not, call the roll.
Ms. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. St. Columbia,
Yes.
Ms. Crockett,
Yes.
Mr. Franklin, Mr. Etherly,
Yes.
Ms. Ford,
Yes.
Mr. Franklin. 5
Yes.
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 Oh,
Yes.
he's on 6 yes.
Motion is approved. Thank you very much. And the next item on the agenda, bids on repair to water leak on Oakland Avenue. Probably all of you are aware of the pothole that's been on Oakland Avenue. And I can tell you, for someone who's been driving that route pretty much every morning for 20 years, if not longer, there's been a pothole there every year for as long as I can possibly remember. It appears to be coming from underground, and it will continue. We continue to patch. It won't do any good until we fix the problem underneath the highway. It's a state highway, and therefore it requires cooperation with the Arkansas Highway Department. We received our permit and approval to commence work on it. Mr. Wyland, are you on right now? I know.
Mayor Smith, yes, sir. I'm only by phone, so I hope you can hear me and understand me.
So can you explain to the council what they need to do tonight so that that project can move forward? And we do have items in the packet. We have bids in the packet.
Well, they were written quotes, and of course, the council, has the right to do it however they want to. You can advertise it, but normally, and in this particular case, I thought the limit was 20,000, but I found out from Mr. Valley this afternoon that there's actually an overriding city ordinance of 7,500. But the problem, the pothole, to the best of our ability to determine is being caused by a leaking sewer service that comes from that house on the south side of the highway, on the south side of Oakland. It crosses under the road and goes into the sewer main, which is running down the median between Perry and on Oakland in the median. There's also a caved-in area in the median, which we are anticipating is probably that same service that is pulled loose from the main and is now collapsing. The soil is being taken into the main. So what the two estimates were based on was for a contractor to come in, and we're going to try to do it in phases to attempt to save a little money if we can. They will start in the median where there's enough room for them to work and dig down and try to find out what the problem is at that cave-in the median without having to have traffic control set up, because they can work in the median without having to get into the traffic. If the city can get the cleaning machine, which I know they've got some staff issues right now, I guess some illnesses and whatever, we'll try to clean it. But they need to get down in and get to the point where they can make that repair in the median. And then the following day, we would have traffic control set up. We would close the right lane of Oakland eastbound so that they can then move their equipment there onto the street and dig down where that pothole is and expose the sewer service. And if there's a way that they can repair it there without having to replace the line underneath the highway, they would make the repair and we would not have to make the bore. We are figuring that that's an old service. It's probably the old Orangeburg pipe. You know, that old pipe is orange, it's clay. If that line has deteriorated and collapsed underneath the highway, then the bid includes boring a new line, which, because of the highway department, requires it has to be encased in a PVC pipe, and then they slip the service line inside that encasement under the highway, and then they would reconnect it to the sewer service at that house. So if it becomes necessary, and it certainly might, they will do the bore. If they can repair it on each side and get that service restored to where it's not boiling up into the street, then they'll do that. And you see on the I'm assuming you have a handout that shows if we can eliminate the bore, what the savings would be. If we can take the traffic control down to 2 days instead of the 3 that I figured, that saves 86. And because the project would be shorter, it would be a little less engineering, basically a little less time that we would have to spend out in the field. So you're looking at a hopefully, again, when we get down in there, you know, we're just making our best estimates as to what we're going to find when we get down in there. You're looking at the price based on the two written quotes that we received, the lowest of the two. The traffic control plan, which comes out of the same group that's been doing the traffic control for the city, because they're certified, they have MUTC certified technicians, and their people that set it up are certified to set it up. And this is very similar to what we've submitted before. So in order to proceed, then I guess, Mayor, I have to turn it back over to you. If there's any questions, I guess you need to get the appropriate action from the council.
Mr. Mayor, may I be recognized before we go forward?
I was just getting ready to ask you anyway. Go ahead.
I met with Mr. Wyland earlier today, and he's gone through all the procedures that would do according to state law. And he's done everything that needs to be done, and there are two proposals, and the question tonight is he's asking for your approval on this. So he's already done all of the legwork. He explained that already. And so at this point, you would simply need to approve the final proposal that is on the table. You'll have two that are there. Ms. Ramsey, did you give them both of them?
Yes,
Both of the
sir,
proposals?
Yes, sir, they have
Yes.
everything.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
I have two estimates here. One for let me see. I think it's 11,000. Is that right? One of them. Is that?
yes, sir. I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
But the total, I think, total estimate, $18,883. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would refer y'all to this item in your packet, which is a summary attached to Mr. Wallen's memo. And,
Yeah.
and behind those are the individual estimates that are referred to in his memo. If that answers your question.
Yes. Well, I'll make a motion if it's in order to approve the work that needs to be done.
Mr. St. Columbia makes a motion that we approve the appropriate. Mr. Val, help me out, make sure I say this right. Approve the appropriations for the Oakland Avenue Highway 49 project.
That's fine, Mr. Mayor. My question was, which one is he doing the total number? 18,000?
Yes, sir. You should approve the 18,883 because, again, we're going to try not to have to do the bore, but you don't want to get out there, get everything set up, and then we have to do the bore, and now you don't have the price included. So that includes the bore and everything that we anticipate we will need to do it. What the 13,747 is, I put that in for the council's benefit that we, the contractor Smith & Weiland will be following it. I'll have Mike Alexander out there, and if it can be done without having to make that expensive bore, then we're going to try to save the city that money. But you need to appropriate the 18,883 because, again, we are expecting and anticipating having to do the bore. But until we get down and see exactly what's wrong, we won't really know if there's a way that we can possibly do it without that bore.
That's the way I understood it. Yes, sir. Thank you.
So, Mr. Valley, the appropriate motion would be to approve appropriations up to $18,883 for the estimate from
Yes.
Wallen Engineers for the Oakland Avenue Highway 49 project. Is there a second? Is there a second? Mr. St. Columbia's motion to approve the Oakland Avenue project to fix the pothole on Oakland Avenue and the sewer project that's causing.
I want to ask a question. I just didn't want to do it while
Yes,
the motion was open.
sure. Well, okay, that motion dies for lack of a second. Mr. Heatherly, you recognize.
I had to step out for a moment, so I missed part of this discussion. He's asking for approval for $18,000. Is that right?
Yes, sir. 18,008 up to 18,883.
Okay, is there a that's going to require an ordinance, right?
He's already gone. He's already
I'm
gone through the process. After what I was saying earlier, he's already gone through the process of procurement and did his portion. That's what I was saying earlier. And so that's why I was saying it wouldn't require ordinance.
Oh, okay. Okay, you're saying it doesn't require an ordinance. Okay.
Right. That's what I was saying earlier. This doesn't vote up or down.
Okay. I'll second that motion.
Okay. Okay. So, Mr. St. Columbia, you want to make that motion again? Because I think I'm technically, Mr. Joe. Mr. St. Columbia, can you hear me?
I'm sorry, I was muted out. Yeah.
Mr. Heatherly wants to second your motion. So would you like to make that motion one more time?
Well, my motion was to approve the 18,000, the appropriations for $18,000, 18,883, understanding that it may cost us a lot less, but we need to appropriate the full amount on the project and that we proceed with getting the project done so the state can finish their job.
Second.
Mr. Heatherly seconds the motion. Any other questions or comments on the motion? The only thing I would add is that if we do this in a timely manner, the State Highway Department has agreed to have the vendor on the repaving project to come in and do their professional job of fixing the pothole once the underlying cause of it is repaired. But we have to do that in a timely manner because they won't be here very long. And basically another week or two is about our window for that. And that will save us several $1,000s if we can do it before they come through. So just would add that. Any other questions or comments? Ms. Ramsey, call the roll.
Ms. Crockett, Ms. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Franklin, Mr. St. Columbia,
Yes.
Ms. Ford, Mr. Etherly,
Yes.
Mr. Franklin, Ms. Crockett. I have 4 yeses, 2 absent.
And I'll be recorded as a yes vote on that as well. Okay, motion passes. Thank you very much. Mr. Wallen, thank you. If you want to hang on for this next part, you might be able to contribute something to it if you can. Thank you again. Next item on the agenda is a resolution. So we sent this information out a few weeks ago. You've probably been reading about it in the paper or hearing about it. The American Rescue Act, which was approved by President Congress, sends out money to cities, counties, states to help cities in the wake of the COVID crisis and pandemic. The amount that was determined determined by population size based on the last census and city revenues, existing city revenues. The information I sent you contained information from the Arkansas Municipal League and others on what the parameters are for cities to spend the money. The resolution in your packet, and I'm going to have to pull it out here, basically says that what the 2 main areas of focus, if you read that material, is water, sewer, wastewater, stormwater, and broadband. We recently had a study done by Windrock International, which I'm about to put on our website, by the way, which is very thorough, and I've had meetings with them about our broadband here in the city. And they had some pretty interesting ideas that we'll talk about later. But they thought 50% of that money would be for our situation. Is total of $2.2 million for the city to use on water and sewer and broadband. There are limited cases of other uses, but I'm hoping you can understand me. But those are limited to demonstrating actual revenue loss due strictly to COVID. That's a very difficult thing for us to prove because, in honest, we actually increased revenue for a variety of reasons, and we certainly would have a difficult time demonstrating a direct loss due to COVID. So the other areas that are allowed are directly related to losses due to COVID. They clearly want cities to use this money for serious infrastructure issues, and they specifically mention water, sewer, wastewater, and stormwater and broadband. So what this resolution does, based on what I just said, would be to broadly appropriate that money. Obviously, every project over $5,000, every project over $7,500 would have to be bid. Most of the projects we're talking about are significantly over and would have to be bid anyway, but we don't have the money for them, particularly in the water and sewer side. And if anything, we don't have the cash flow. So one of the things I'm hoping we can do is to leverage this money into more money for our significant water and sewer issues. Can y'all hear me? Okay.
Yes, I hear you.
Okay. I was having some issues on my side. Anyway, so what the resolution is simply appropriating the funds. I'll let you use it. It's a very, very narrow one. And actually, this resolution was drafted when we thought it was going to be 1.8 million. It's actually going to be more like 2.2 million. But at any rate, which is good news. It also mentions that, and this is something that Mr. Wallen might want to chime in on, the imminent need to clean out and paint two of our main water tanks, the Reservoir Hill, which has never been cleaned out or painted since it was first put there. And it's our main water tank for Helena. It's the heart that pumps water throughout the system. The West tank, which is also part of that system, is also past due. And if you remember this year, we had a spot rust out, had to be repaired. And we have some stability issues that we need to address as well with West tank, which is straight down the road behind J Wall. And those are significant expenses. We're talking, we get bids, but we're talking in the range of $300,000 to $400,000 per tank. So those are specifically mentioned in this resolution. The rest of it does mention broadband, collaboration, rock. So, and 90%, the 10% allocations, which that can be changed at any time. But it's something that the council needs to address. So at this point, I would open it up for any questions.
What is the resolution number of that? What's the
It'd be
number?
number 11.
Mr. Mayor, Joe St. Columbia,
Yes, sir.
If there's no questions or comments concerning your statements about the resolution, I make a motion that we put resolution 11, reading the title only, for approval.
I think it's just a resolution. So, Mr. Valley, we just need to approve the resolution at this point.
That's correct. It's just a vote up. It's just a vote up or down.
So it would be a motion for adoption of resolution number 11, 2021 regarding the American Rescue Act. Okay, is there a second? Is there a second? So, all right, so Mr. St. Columbia, it sounds like the motion did not get a second. So, but let me stop before we move on. Any questions or comments about it? Because we're talking about $1.1 million right now. And we have 2 water tanks that are already past cleaning out. Reservoir Hill has never been done. And that water is flowing from Reservoir Hill to everybody on the east side in Helena. It goes to the same place. We're already in the process of getting it drawn down for inspection, which is also past due. And that's another story. We talked about it already, but to actually clean out the tank and paint it according to state regulations it's going to take some time and some money, and it's way past due, and at least half of our city drinks it. Same with West Hike is equally, or it's not as important, but it's extremely important because it serves our hospital, it serves our nursing home, it serves a huge area of our city. So, and then of course broadband, we just briefly say we are not eligible for most of the grants, federal and state, on broadband that you've read about, which is one of the things we asked, specifically asked Winrock International to examine and look into, because I didn't think we were. I talked to a lot of officials about it, but they wanted to include us. They approached us actually and wanted us to do this for us. And Thrive, by the way, was a big part of making that happen. So thank you, Thrive, and anybody else who helped with that. It's a good report. We're going to publish it soon. But one of the things they said is we're not eligible because we are connected to broadband. The issue of the size of bandwidth, how fast it is, the affordability of it, especially for a poor community, all of those issues are not addressed by the federal and state funds or grants that you may have read about, like the governor's initiative and so forth, because we have broadband. It's spotty in some places, there are a lot of issues, but we have it. And those are designed to get people connected to it. The Winrock study pointed out that this money will allow us to address getting those other issues dealt with: the speed, the affordability, the competitiveness of it, the access to it, the reliability of it. One of the problems we have with these meetings is our broadband bandwidth is not, if you think of it as an interstate, it's not wide enough, it's not broad enough to deal with traffic. So sometimes we lose each other, which I think I almost did a while ago because of that. The 10% of this money, they say at least, is plenty to get and we might not need that much. We might need more than that, but we can change that as we go. So I think the broadband piece is extremely important in a world where people work from home and can live almost anywhere. We have a couple here who work at Walmart who live here now. In IT, we have a lawyer who I met recently who works online, who lives here, but I think is not sure where they're originally from, but he moved here because of his wife, but he could do his practice anywhere online. So that's going to happen more and more and more. And to be a part of that economic future, which we're already missing out so much on, a lot of reasons, this is our chance to stand out when it comes to broadband. And it's because of the Recovery Act that we'll be able to do that. And then, of course, I really don't have to go into water and sewer. Mr. Wallen, do you want, and I'll be quiet if we're not going to make a motion on doing this. I have sent information out to you weeks ago and would invite any questions. Mr. Wallen, if you're still on, you want to address anything before I move on?
Well, certainly, and I think it goes without saying to all the council members who have been dealing with the water and sewer issues now ever since I've been, blessed with working with the city. Water and sewer, there's so much, we have so much need, and this is just an opportunity that just kind of fell out of the sky. Unfortunately, at the cost of a pandemic, the only small silver lining is that, it has made these grant funds available. And there are certainly some critical things that need to be done, things that before, there just was no way to do it. I mean, it was just so far from a cost standpoint out of reach. And there's going to be many things that will be beyond even this amount that you're talking about. Certainly the tank, and that we've been working now for the past month or so trying to get a 12-inch main that was broken. We've been getting it repaired. It's going to be a key part in being able to cut the Reservoir Hill tank out of the system while it is inspected and a report made that we can use to bid it out. But the replacement of that 12-inch main is another large project that needs to be done. Certainly the painting of the west tank, both tanks are going to be lead containing, which means the paint was the old type of paint that had lead in it. The repainting will take all of that off. And then again, I know everyone's tired. We could talk all night about, all the other issues, pump stations, wastewater, water leaks, old galvanized, 2-inch galvanized water lines that need to be replaced that keep leaking in the middle of the street and causing your streets, to deteriorate. So it's certainly important. And Mayor, if I'm not mistaken, I think there is a time limit on that money from the other clients that I serve. It's my understanding it has to be spent by 2024, which sounds like a long time away, but when you start talking about these larger type projects that need planning, designs, in some cases right-of-way, which can take a long time to acquire right-of-way for something you need to do, 2024 will march right up to us really quickly, so you don't certainly want to lose this opportunity. And I will cede back to you, Mayor. I know nobody likes listening to an engineer all night long.
Mayor, can I make a suggestion? This is Derek Turner.
Yeah,
Secretary.
Mr. Turner, sure. Yeah.
If you guys don't already have any estimates or bids out for repair and maintenance to the towers, why don't you just go submit some bids for the repair and maintenance on the towers, and when you get those numbers, come back to the council, then they could appropriate the funds for that particular project. Instead of making a resolution for the entire amount, if we need be do a piecemeal, I'm not sure if that's what they would like to do, but if the repair and maintenance on the tower is so pressing, then let's just go ahead and proceed and try to get that done and make appropriations for that, if that's something that they would like to do. And that's just a suggestion.
Yeah, that's a fine suggestion, and that's fine. I mean, we have to bring it back before the council anyway because of the size of it. What this really is an indication to the water and sewer, federal and state agencies, what our intention is, so that we can try to leverage this with more monies. So it would be preferable if we announced our intention to spend the predominant amount on water and sewer and these other issues, so that we might be able to leverage that money. But it's not absolutely imperative, and we could do it that way. Absolutely. Because we do have to bid them out anyway, and we have to bring those before the council anyway. So, all right. So, in the interest of time, are there any other comments or questions about it at this point? If not, of course, we're here every day throughout the week, and be willing to answer any questions you might have. Otherwise, thank you very much. Okay, the next item on the agenda, I'm going to pass over or withdraw. I probably made a mistake of not removing it from the agenda to begin with, because I'm not going to present that at this point. But I will move on to the ordinance amending base pay regarding police entry positions, which is related to the resolution, but it's not the same thing. And I'm not going to bring up that resolution in the future. But on the ordinance, if we move down to ordinance amending base pay, adding 5 police entry level positions and 3 water maintenance positions. I sent out an email late this afternoon. I don't know that you all got it. Some of you may not have, but I can review it on the police issue. On the maintenance position issue, I'll deal with that maybe first instead of the police. We are woefully behind. I bet Mr. Wiley got off by now, but we are woefully behind on water leaks, on sewer issues, on a multitude of things in the water company. There are a number of reasons for that, but the primary reason is a lack of available maintenance crew and a lack of available vendors, even to address the multitude of water and sewer issues. And I'll say this again, we have 2 water sewer systems for 2 different cities, really, that we're now managing as one company. That's challenging enough. But we have 2 hearts, and each heart have arteries and pumps water to the veins and capillaries, and those veins and capillaries, especially capillaries, are old, rotting, worn out, and so they're bursting. And when you have extreme weather conditions, which we've had in the last year, it shakes and moves the earth as dramatically as it does between extreme freezing temperatures and extreme heat. Actually does even more damage than the freezing. You see even more water problems, sewer problems across the city when you have weak capillaries and blood vessels and all the rest. We have the problem we just spoke about, the water tanks. Those are our heart. That's our heart. And our wells are pumps that pump the water throughout the system. You have to take care of those, or the capillaries don't map. Unfortunately, people don't see that. What they see is that pothole that's caused in front of their street by water that they see every day on their commute. They don't see what's going on all over town. They think it's the only one in town, and they don't understand what had been fixed. And I would pretty much guarantee each of you have heard the same thing. So I won't belabor that. I will say that one of the issues is that lingers from when we had rates that were too low for too long, and we have so much deferred maintenance that we're still a long way from catching up on, is that we don't have enough maintenance positions in the water department. So, Mr. Turner, if you're still on, you can explain, if you don't mind, sorry to put you on the spot, what those 3 water maintenance positions are, what they do, how much. Are you still on, Mr. Turner? You may have taken a break. I'll move on, and when he comes back, we can go over the specifics. The police positions. I was hoping, and I still hope, that we can get on the same page regarding that. So I sent this out. We've had a number of meetings this week, and so this is where we are. We have, and as I said in the email, I'm very reluctant, and would ask people to, even though this is being recorded and it's public, those people who are on social media, people on actual media, if you would try to be as responsible as you possibly can. We're talking about public safety, and there are many people out there who mean harm to our public safety. So I would ask you to be mindful of that as you expound on these issues. But it has already been an issue. And so in our budget, our meetings, Mr. Turner's been a part of them, Chief Smith, Chief Mayfield, Mr. Valley at one point, and many others, to try and get us to at least a starting point so that we can at least have a starting point to discuss. I think there's been some miscommunication. Some of it might be my fault. So I'll take ownership of that to the extent that I caused any of it. But this is the situation. We have 19 positions available for patrol. We have one that was recently vacated, and we have it now up for advertisement and hope to fill it again. Other than that, all available positions, patrol positions, are filled except for that one that's advertised from someone who recently left. Of course, that happens throughout the year, but police, fire department, all departments, we obviously are going to have people come and go. It's not that unusual, but Now, we also have 6 positions of corporal, sergeant, lieutenant, and captain, a total of 6. So you add those together and you have 25 people in the budget, certified law enforcement officers. However, the 6 officer positions, I just mentioned sergeant, we have 1 corporal filled, but we have 3 other corporal positions open. We have a sergeant position, unfilled. I don't want to say open. We have a sergeant position unfilled. We have 3 corporal positions unfilled. We have 1 lieutenant position unfilled and 1 captain position unfilled, for a total of 6 positions unfilled. Those are the promotion slots. So in the email, and this is what we spent a lot of time on trying to narrow down. And I wish I could make it sound in a simple way, but the short version of this is when it comes to promotions in the police department, there are a number of standards and laws and regulations at state level, even at our own level, at our manual, that we have to follow in order to fill those positions. It's not as simple as the chief or assistant chief, or even for that matter, for me to say, hey, I like you, you're my buddy, I'm going to make you whatever. We all know court cases, and I'll probably lean on Mr. Valley a little bit here, but we all know court cases where that sort of thing was said recklessly, perhaps by officials with the city, perhaps not. But the important issue is that a process was not followed. And the state law and also some court decisions require there to be a certain process involved. And that process, we hope, will commence October 1st of this year. The Phillips Community College is, according to Alita, we can administer tests in April or in October. We have to give those who want to sit for the exams 30 days to study for them and to make sure they're aware and available. And then we administer the test October 1st. It takes probably at least another 30 days to process that. So November 1st, before we actually fill those positions. Of course, school is out this summer. We approved the policy manual, which is what the test is based upon, last spring. The goal is to have the test ready by September 1st, make it available to everybody who is an existing employee or certified law enforcement officer for the city, and to try and promote from within first, and give everybody that opportunity to take the test. There are other requirements, such as how many years they've served and so forth, but they can all take the test. And if they pass the test, then whenever they meet those other standards, the test part will already be checked off. Makes sense. So I tried to make it simple. It's really not very simple, I guess, except to say that I can't just simply promote people without exposing us to the legal challenges that we're all familiar with. And so however, having said that, we hope to have that process completed in October, November. That would still, even if we fill all of those positions, would still only give us 25. So in this base pay, getting back to that, I've asked for an additional 5 positions for patrol that would get us to 30 if we fill all the promotions this fall. 30 is, as we spoke to earlier, is what we have in the fire department. We have 2 cities. If you divide that in half, that's 15. It's still not, in my opinion, enough. 35 would be, 40 would be closer to it. But, we're working, we should be working towards it. We passed this manual, which y'all voted for and approved and have a copy of. And I'll just refer you to page 1, which is very good. This is our goal. And I would refer any citizens who are paying attention. This is the goal. And the goal is to take us from Mayberry to a more professional law enforcement department that befits the level of danger to public safety, the level of crime that we have, and is modernized to modern standards, especially modern challenges that we didn't have, 10, 15, 20 years ago even. So that's my thing. Mr. Turner's back on. Would you like to specify what's in that base pay ordinance? And then I'll be quiet except for questions.
The only thing that I've changed in the base pay ordinance was the number of patrolmen. I think we had 17 in the base pay ordinance. I think it was split out between 9 and 8 entry-level patrolmen and patrolman first class. And I think what I did was put 11 apiece, 11 entry-level patrolmen and 11 patrolman first class. So those, and we also recommended that after having discussions with you and the water department manager of adding 2 maintenance employees to the water department. I see on the agenda, it says 3, but for my notes that I took, I think that we only discussed adding 2 to the base pay. So I only added 2. So I'm not sure if the agenda is wrong or if I got the number wrong. But as far as the police department is concerned, I added 5 additional patrolmen to the base pay. And those were the only changes that I made.
Thank you for clarifying that. Any questions?
Andre Valla, City Attorney, point of clarity, Mayor. As far as the captain and lieutenant position, for this year, you may want to consider placing those somewhere else, because even if you do the promotions, no one would go from corporal to captain, no one will go from sergeant to captain. And I don't know what that does to your numbers, but that's something to think about. If you're trying to achieve an overall number, if you're trying to achieve an overall number that's 30, you still may come short because you currently have no one that could be promoted to captain.
That's true. And I carefully said, if we fill those positions, they have to approve that they have to pass the test, but they also have to meet other conditions. I just didn't want to belabor all the conditions because there's so many.
Okay.
But I would say you're probably right. Tenure is one of those, and yeah.
Right, I understand, not to get out in the weeds with discussion, but I was just saying, if you're trying to get a particular number, then you may want to consider additional one at the bottom, because that one at the top is not going to be filled definitely. And that's what, if you're trying to achieve overall number, I just want you all to think about that when you're having the discussion. That's all I was saying.
No, and you're right, and thank you for clarifying that. It would probably be 29. Because the captain position has some requirements that would take a little bit more time. So that's a good point. Thank you, Mr. County.
But Mayor, I would also like to remind you that that was part of the discussion that we had, and I think the chief acknowledged that and suggested that that captain's position be removed and added to help the appropriations be removed to help pay for the additional officers that you're requesting. So that was mentioned in the meeting that we had.
Yeah, he did mention that. You're right. Then the long-term goal would still be the same. But,
okay.
We're talking about internal promotions only, and the goal would be to strive for that first. and complete that process and give everybody that chance. Of course, we're in November at that point, at the very least. So we're talking about the end of the fiscal year. And then you can hire externally if they meet those qualifications, but we want to try and promote internally first because we want to reward tenure and we want to give people a sense of professional promotion and professional development before we open it up to outside, although we could do that. And we will need a major or a captain ultimately, but at least one. But you're right, you're absolutely right. And that was brought up earlier. So we could temporarily, or we could right now use one of those positions in one of these 5.
Mayor, if I may, excuse me, I think we both are getting a little ahead of ourselves. Currently, you're asking for the position to be created, and that's all we're discussing. The other, most of the discussion that we're having really is on the budget side. What you're trying to do is to get the positions created because they're not created at all in the base pay. So the discussion about the financial part, I think we can hold later. The question at this point is whether the council wants to adopt the base pay just to create the positions, so you can move forward to the discussion of actually funding the positions.
Yes, sir. That's exactly right. Thank you. So having said that, any other questions or discussion, comments?
I have a question for Derek.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question for Derek. Derek, the 9 dispatchers, that number 9, does that include 911 dispatchers?
Were you asking me? I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am. Now, I don't currently know how many we have, but yeah, that includes the 911 dispatchers.
Since the county operates 911 now, we still have 911 dispatchers?
Now that I'm not sure of, but we did when we made the budget. So I'm not sure how everything after they took on the 911 system. I'm not exactly sure how many we have, but when that budget was passed, those dispatchers, the 911 dispatchers were included in that number.
The only thing I'd add to that is I can't remember, I didn't come prepared to talk about dispatchers, but I do know we have, I believe, an advertisement. I don't know if it's still open or closed yet, but for dispatch. And I do know the county is running 911, and I do know that it will, they're not all filled, but I can't specifically tell you how many of them are. Did that answer your question? Or at least almost?
Replicate a certain kind of American.
To the response.
Ms. Ford, can you hear me?
I can. I said, thanks for the response.
Okay, I just didn't hear that. I'm sorry. It's a great question, though. And for those who don't know, the Phillips County has updated, modernized 911, moved it to the new Justice Complex, and hired people to run it. So, yes, then that's a very good point. So, thank you. I'm sorry I don't have a complete answer for you. Maybe we can get you one tomorrow, though. Other comments and questions? So really the question would be 2 additional water maintenance employees in the base pay. 2 positions. We're not increasing their pay, right, Mr. Turner? It's the same pay. It's just additional positions, 2 additional water and maintenance employees and 5 additional entry-level policemen.
Yes, but I would like for them to consider when they're making the decision. I would like to give them some information on about how much it would cost. Because even though they have to add positions to the base pay ordinance, they still have to consider the cost that of how much it will increase the budget and how much it will increase appropriations. So basically, for the remainder of the year, to add 5 additional police officers would cost, hold on a second. It would cost $72,000 in salary and benefits through the remainder of the year to add 5 additional officers. So it would increase the appropriations by somewhere in the neighborhood of $73,000 at the most by the end of this year. And you also have to also consider what the effect it would have on next year's budget. And so adding 5 additional officers would add approximately $218,000 to next year's budget. That's in salaries and wages. I mean, salaries, wages, and benefits.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry. I'm trying to communicate with the highway department about the Oakland Avenue. So it really is a very timely issue, and we will save a lot of money if we can get this quickly. Okay, back to the issue before the council. 5 additional entry-level positions, 2 additional entry-level positions in water maintenance. Any other questions or comments? Okay. So I guess I would ask the council at this point if there is a motion to approve the ordinance number. I'm not sure, Ms. Ramsey, what that ordinance number is.
23.
23.
Yes, sir, 23.
To amend the base pay ordinance for 5 additional entry-level police and 2 additional maintenance positions in the water department. Is there a motion to adopt ordinance number 23? All right, hearing no motion.
So moved.
I'll second that motion.
Ms. Davis moves adoption ordinance number 23, 2021.
Read the
Mr.
title.
Secretary, seconded the motion. Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Mayor, if I may interject.
Yes,
Is
sir.
the motion to suspend the rules based on 35 reading the title only?
Yes, sir. That was the motion. As Mr. Valley stated, any other questions or comments?
I
If
have a
not, call the
question.
roll. Ms. Davis,
have-
yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Now, this resolution says 10. Did you say that?
No, not the resolution. We're not gonna, I just pulled the
base pay.
resolution, so just
just
the
want to
ordinance on base pay. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay, I'm ready.
Good question. Any other questions or comments on the motion as stated by Mr. Valley for ordinance number 23 on 3rd and final reading? Reading the title only. If not, call the roll.
Ms. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. St. Columbia,
Yes.
Ms. Crockett, Mr. Franklin, Mr. Etherly, Ms. Ford.
Yes.
I have 3 yes, 3 absent.
I'll vote yes.
Okay, 4 yes. 3 absent.
Sandy, did you record my vote?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I think we had more than that, didn't we?
We
Can
had
you read that back?
Davis, St. Columbia, and Ford voted yes. I didn't hear anything from
Etherly.
Crockett. Huh?
Etherly voted.
Did you vote, Mr. Etherly? I'm sorry. Did you vote yes?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I didn't hear that. That would give us 4 yes and 2 absent.
Mr. Turner, can you read the title to it? I don't have the ordinance in front of me.
Mr. Turner,
Read the what? Ms. Rams,
read the title.
I don't have it in front of me. I don't have it in front of me,
Yeah.
Ms. Rams. Have it.
Okay.
An ordinance to fix the number and base pay of full-time employee and elected officials to amending all prior such ordinances and for other purposes.
Now we need a motion to adopt.
I so move.
Second.
Mr. St. Columbia moves adoption of ordinance number 23, 2021. Ms. Davis seconds the motion. Any other comments or questions about the motion? If not, call the roll.
Mr. Etherly,
Yes.
Ms. Ford,
Yes.
Ms. Davis,
Yes.
Ms. Crockett, Mr. Franklin, Mr. St. Columbia.
Yes.
I have 4 yes, 2 absent.
Thank you. Motion passes. And then, is there an emergency clause in this, Mr. I guess there is, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So the last motion will be a motion. Ms. Davis moves adoption of the emergency clause ordinance number 23, 2021. Is there a second?
I so move.
Mr.
I'll
St.
second.
Columbia seconds the motion. Any other comments or questions on the emergency clause 23? If not, call the roll.
Mr. Franklin, Ms. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Etherly,
Yes.
Ms. Ford,
Yes.
Ms. Crockett, Mr. St. Columbia.
Yes.
I have 4 yes and 2 absent.
Motion passes. Thank you very much. And I know the city is grateful as well. So thank you on their behalf also. And we will move forward expeditiously and we'll report back to you on this promotion process as well as we move forward on that. And again, thank you. Thank you very much. Last issue on the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, before you go forward, I
Yes,
just
sir.
want to remind you, the positions are created, they haven't been appropriated yet. And so we still got to have a discussion about
All right,
appropriation.
You're right. I pulled the resolution because I really was not asking for 10 police officers and 10 additional sky cops in this matter. And so it would have to be a verbal resolution.
Yeah, they would have to approve whatever officers you're asking for, whatever fund, whatever position you're asking for, so that you can have the appropriation. That you just created them then, so everybody know how many officers you have, but you still have to finance it.
Right. Okay, so I guess the question would be a motion to adopt a resolution to appropriate the funds as limited to the base pay ordinance number 23 for 5 new open police entry level positions and 2 new water maintenance positions. Is that the right motion, Mr. Valley?
Well, I think simply just motion to fund the police department positions that were just created in the base pay, just so everybody be clear about what we're talking about.
Do we have a resolution for that, Mr. Valley?
All you need is a motion.
Oh, okay. Well, I so move that we appropriate the funds.
So we don't need the resolution that we have. I mean, although it's not correct, but we don't need one. Is that what you're saying? Attorney?
Yes, ma'am. A motion and resolution carry the same legal weight.
Thank you.
Well, I'll make the motion.
Second.
Mr. St. Clement moves,
Davis second.
makes a motion to appropriate positions as as just approved in ordinance number 23. Ms. Davis seconds the motion. Any questions or comments about the motion? If not, call the roll.
Mr. Etherly,
Yes.
Ms. Ford,
Yes.
Mr. Franklin, Mr. St. Columbia,
Yes.
Ms. Davis,
Yes.
Ms. Crockett. 4 yes, 2 absent.
Mayor, can I add
Sorry,
something?
thank you. Yes, sir. Yes, sir, Mr. Turner.
Yeah, I just want to let the council know that according to my calculations, like I told you before, it would be about $72,860 for additional appropriation this year for 5 officers. And so I will change the appropriations in the budget. And so the next treasurer's report will reflect that.
Thank you. And thank you again. And I'm trying to be mindful of the time, trying to get to the bottom of the agenda, Ms. Davis. When issuing action, and Mr. Valley, I'll just clarify for the public, this is an appropriation for legal funds that were to pay for a special prosecutor, not for defense attorneys, as some people have misunderstood. And I just wanted to be sure to say that myself. Mr. Valley, you're recognized.
There were 2, I've been contacted by 2 lawyers. One of them is Vandal Bland. He called me about the case involving Marcel Stevenson. That's a civil litigation that's going on with Marcel Stevenson. He was asking that you appropriate additional funds for him. He said he suspended the $5,000 and that he's getting ready for move forward to do more in the case, and he would need additional appropriation. Vince Guest also contacted me. He sent an email to me, and I thought I forwarded it to the council. I know I forwarded it to the mayor, but out of the initial $5,000, he spent $3,200, and he's going to go over that. Just in candid to you, the paper showed that Mr. Franklin was convicted. He's done an appeal. There's probably going to be a jury trial on the appeal. And then there are other cases that he is still working on that he has not completed. And so I was asking that you appropriate $5,000 in each of those cases just to keep moving forward.
And Mr. Bland, in that case, is acting as a prosecutor too, as well, a special prosecutor, right?
No, he's acting as a defense lawyer in that case. In that one case, he's acting as a defense lawyer. Just being candid with you, that case was a lawsuit that I actually brought against the city years ago, and I had to get off the case when I became city attorney. And Mr. Bland is representing the city on that case. But that case
But
was
it's still related. It's still related to the conflict of interest issue. I guess what I'm trying to say.
Yes, it's a conflict of interest issue. Yes.
I'm trying to confuse anybody. Might be confused. Anyway, any questions, Mr. Valley? Okay, is there a motion to approve $5,000? Is it 5,000 or up to?
It's up to 5,000. Right, in each of those 2 cases.
So a total
well,
of 10?
Mr. Guest is more than one case. Yes, a total of 10. Because Mr. Guest had other cases that he was dealing with other than just the case involving Mr. Franklin and the mayor. There were like 5 or 6 cases.
So the motion would be an appropriation for an additional $10,000.
Yes, Mayor. Yes, Mayor. I'm not being short. I'm sorry, I'm not being short. I was in the middle of doing something. I'm here with my daughter, and I apologize to everyone. I'm trying to do daddy duties as I'm talking to you all, trying to get her ready for the end of the day. But yes, it's total of $10,000.
There a motion to appropriate an additional $10,000 to the legal department as specified by Mr. Valley regarding the conflict of interest cases. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Ms. Davis, adoption of the appropriation is specified. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Etherly seconds the motion. Any other questions or comments about the motion? If not, call the roll.
Franklin, Davis,
Yes.
Etherly,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Crockett, St. Columbia,
Yes,
4 yes, 2 absent.
Thank you. Mr. Valley, anything else on that or anything?
No, sir, nothing else.
All right, I know we're going a little late, but I know Ms. Davis has been patient and this is an important subject for all of us. Under discussion, abandoned and vacant structures, Ms. Davis.
Mayor, can we move it to the next meeting?
Sure, absolutely. There's no objection, then we'll move that to the next agenda for the next meeting. All right, we've been trying to keep these to the 2 hours that was requested. Is there any other business for the council to come before the council before we adjourn?
Thank you.
I move we adjourn.
Mr. St. Columbia moves adjournment. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Davis seconds the motion. There's no objection. The city council meeting is adjourned. Thank y'all very much. We had a good meeting. Appreciate it.
Everybody have a good evening.
Two. Thanks.